Pleasant evening to you. It is very good to see you here this evening. Let me begin by saying thank you to all of you who have traveled here this evening. We are fired up and we're ready to go. Let me say again, we are fired up and we are ready to go. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about experience. You're going to hear a lot about this word experience over the next couple of months leading up into the next general election. I listened to the opposition party talking about they have the experience to lead Anguilla into the next election. Well, I want to start off by reminding you of a few things here this evening, because I think it's important that you know. The opposition will no doubt continue to tell you that this government has done nothing in its term, and you should replace them because they have the experience. Well, let us look at that for a moment. In an effort to determine what they have called this so-called experience, it is necessary for us to look back to substantiate that claim. In an effort to substantiate that claim, it is helpful to ascertain what independent observers have been saying about the management of Anguilla's fiscal finances over the last administration. In a letter addressed to the then Honorable Chief Minister, the Honorable Osborne Fleming, Mr. Chris Bryant stated, and I quote, "I welcome the commitments you have made towards cutting public expenditure, including a public service pay cut. However, there has been less progress to broaden Anguilla's revenue base. It is the absence of such plans, including details on how existing and further debt will be paid back over the next 3 to 5 years, and your planned changes to Anguilla's taxation policy. I cannot agree to your entire borrowing request." I cannot agree to your entire borrowing request. And the key words there is, there's been less progress to broaden Anguilla's tax base in the absence of such plans, including details on how they will pay back this debt. They cannot agree to Anguilla's borrowing request. So what is he really saying? What he's saying is that this experienced government, with all this experience, when they came to make a representation for the government of Anguilla to get borrowing, they didn't provide enough details to enable an independent observer to look at the thing and say, this makes sense, these guys have experience, and I have no doubt about approving this request. But that is not what happened. What he said, I cannot do it. So in fact, what he was saying, your lack of detail. I do not have the confidence in what you have presented to me, so therefore I have to deny your borrowing request. And they talk about experience. That's what we're going to be talking here about tonight, folks. We are talking about experience. He also stated, given the particular circumstances of your request to include provision to finance a proposed runway extension at Warblake Airport, I would be happy to consider that separately once I have received a comprehensive business case which makes clear the impact of the reduction in the declared runway length and any consequent loss of revenue to Anguilla. Now what is he saying here again? He's saying the government of Anguilla went up to the UK and said, I want to borrow money to extend the runway airport, but didn't tell the British government how they were going to pay this money back when they borrowed it. If they didn't extend the runway airport, how much revenue Anguilla would lose. So in effect, they didn't have a business case, they didn't have a plan. All they went up there to say is, I need to borrow this money, and didn't tell them how they would pay it back. So again, he said, sorry, I can't do it. Sorry, I can't do it. The letter says that the proposed borrowing will only be permitted if the government presents a comprehensive business case making clear the impact of the reduction in the airport length and the consequent loss of revenue to Anguilla. Now, one would have thought with all this experience that these guys would have included such basic information. These are the guys that are saying, we have the experience. Now, can you imagine going to your bank and showing up at the bank manager's office and saying, I come here to borrow $200,000. I come to borrow $200,000. But didn't tell him, well, you know, how am I going to pay this back? Didn't present any case as to how am I going to pay this $200,000 back. Now, what do you think the bank manager would say? He would say, thank you very much for your time. We will call you when we have an answer. And you know what the answer is. The answer will be no. The answer will be no. So these guys who pretend to have all this experience, whenever I look at all the documentation that have been sent to them or talks about them during their term, it speaks to a lack of experience of the previous administration. And it is important for you to understand that. It's important for you to understand that because these are the guys, these are the same guys who will say to you, give us another term, put us back. Put us back. That's what they'll be saying to you. The Anguilla United Front have the experience, so put us back. But everything you read says, no, there's a lack of experience. There's a lack of experience. I want to read a letter that was sent to the Honorable, the then Honorable Minister of Finance, Mr. Victor Banks. And again, we're talking about experience here. But hear what this letter says. We're talking about experience. The fact that you have made this borrowing request at such short notice reflects fundamental weaknesses in the government of Angola's public financial management. We're talking about experience here, folks. That's what we're talking about here tonight. In terms of poor budgeting and monitoring and weak expenditure control. This is what the minister was then saying to the then Minister of Finance. The fact that you've made this borrowing request at such short notice reflects fundamental weaknesses in the government of Angola's public financial management in terms of poor budgeting and monitoring and weak expenditure control. These issues will have to be considered in reviewing and, if necessary, agreeing new borrowing guidelines, which, among other things, we will be looking at for mechanisms to ensure that borrowing requirements are accurately identified at an earlier stage. What this is saying, that these guys didn't know that things were going wrong. They had no clue. But they're saying that their experience, and they wait until the very last minute to go to the British government and say, well, you know what, yeah, we're going to need to borrow some money, because things ain't looking so good. And they talk about experience. This isn't black and white, folks. This isn't my text. This is the text of the then Chris Bryant, the minister. The letter was written to the Minister of Finance, then Honorable Victor Banks, back in 2010, talking about experience. Everything we read talks about inexperience. Exactly. I heard a statement on the radio sometime talking about Angola's public debt and how it increased from 191 million to 200 odd million under this administration. We'll get into that. We'll break it down for you so you can understand what's really been going on. Because they only tell you half of the story. Well, I'm here to tell you the whole story, the full story, and not just half of the story. The government of Angola commissioned a potential savings study and expenditure issued on April 21st, 2010 by Mark Watson, who is an economist and a public financial management consultant. In this report, he stated, the public sector bill has sustained an upwards path in recent years. Over the 4-year period, the wage bill has more than doubled over a 4-year period, from EC $2.9 million in January 2006 to EC $6.1 million in 2009. These are guys talking about experience. You double your wage bill in this 4-year period. Just imagine Just imagine you running a business. In over 4 years, your wage bill doubled. I mean, just imagine that. You know? And here's why it doubled. Across the board pay increases, including 25%. Award implemented in July 2008. This was applied to the more senior public servants, with more junior staff receiving lower increases. This is what these experienced guys have done. And they're going to say to you, put us back because we have the experience. Put us back. Put us back. We are talking about experience. In 2008, when everyone knows that the world economy was in decline, this administration, AUF, awarded themselves 25% increase at the top levels and gave the lower staff smaller increases. No, I mean, that doesn't make sense anyway. But it may have made sense to some people, those who were retiring in 2010, because they wanted to go home with their salaries at the highest level and get the greater gratuities. That is why they increased the salaries by 25%. It wasn't because of you, it wasn't because of the ordinary man in Anguilla, it was because they were looking out for themselves. Ensuring that when they decided to demit office, that they went home with a handsome $500,000 gratuity and their pension. This is what happened in Anguilla, and these guys are talking about experience. The report continues. It says, the most concerning observation about this data is that there continues to be new recruitment. While some of the headcount increase represents the transfer into established posts of individuals previously paid wages and not part of PE, many departments are continuing to recruit. Given the public finances situation, this seems extremely surprising and suggests the gravity of the situation had not been appreciated. This is what the man is saying, that even though things were going wrong and going bad, the government of the day had not appreciated the fact that the economy was going into decline. These are not my words, folks. These are not my words. Given the public finance situation, this seems extremely surprising and suggests the gravity of the situation had not been appreciated. This is an independent consultant and economist. These are not my words, people. These are not my words. So let us get on to debt. At the end of 2013, public sector debt stood at $231.6 million, or 30.6% of GDP. This represented a marginal decline of 1% relative to the 10-12 stock of $234 million, 30.9% of GDP. Over the period 2009 to 2013, Anguilla's public debt grew at an average rate of 5.34%. That's under this administration. The debt rose by an average of 5% a year. Now let me compare that to what happened under the previous administration, because as I said before, I ain't giving you just one side of the story. I'm giving you the whole story so you can understand just how experienced these guys are. I want you to know, compared to the previous administration, where central debt almost tripled from 2005 to 2009, from $67.3 million to $191 million from 2005 to 2009. Almost a 300% increase over that period. Compare that to a 5% increase under this administration. Debt service, which includes interest payments, doubled over the same period, from EC $5.7 million to EC $12 million. Doubled over a 4-year period. And these are the guys that talk about experience. That's what we're talking about here tonight, folks. We're talking about experience. So I know you have the common sense to know where the experience is. My fellow Anguillans, now permit me to demonstrate what happened since 2010, because we're talking about experience. 1 year, just 1 year after this administration came into office, we cut spending by 8%. 8%. From $202 million down to $186 million in just 1 year. In just 1 year. And we improved revenues from an all-time low of $148 million that took us back 5 years. Because when you look at the 2009 revenue collections, you have to go back 2005 years, 2005 or thereabout, to find a comparable figure. So we dropped in 2009 to where we were back in 2005, almost 5-year regression. In any event, given the tough, difficult times, this administration still managed to grow revenues from $148 million to $155 million. This administration did that, and they're talking about we did nothing. This is the figure in black and white, and tell them to repeat that. Tell them to repeat this. We reduced the overall deficit in the first year from $50 million down to $30 million. In the first year, that's what this administration has done. Since taking office, we have further improved the fiscal position by increasing revenues by 17% and reducing expenditure by 13%, because that is what responsible people do. Leadership. That's what responsible leaders do. You don't continue spending like there's no tomorrow. You look at your expenditure and you say, boy, things ain't going so good, you know, so where can I make some changes? And we did that. All the time while growing revenue by 17%, we managed to reduce expenditures by 13%. When we came into office, to quote the Honorable former Minister of Finance, we met the reserves at ground zero. Right. We met them at ground zero. There were no reserves. Reserves have been depleted, decimated. And today, reserves stand at $29 million. That is what a responsible government does. That's what we did. We could have spent it. We could have gone and done something with it. But we said, no, we got to put away something for the rainy day, because we know the rainy day will come. We know the rainy day will come, so we'll put away something for the rainy day, because we know that rainy day will come. But not these guys. Not these experienced guys. We've resolved the flight tenements project, and there are many workers down there, not just from this administration, not just people that support this administration, people that support every administration in Anguilla is working down at tenements, because we don't tell people who to hire. Hire whoever you want. Once you hire an Anguillan, it don't matter to us. Hire whoever you want from east, west, north, or south, it don't matter. As long as Anguillans are working, we are satisfied. We're going to tell you who to hire. So we resolved flight tenements, now called the reef. We have revived Anguilla. A number of hotel projects is now ongoing, all over, east, west, north, and south. You don't have to take my word for it. Go and look for yourself. Tourism numbers reaching record levels again. Record levels. And for the first time since 2008, we are projected to have a surplus. For the first time since 2008, we are projected to have a surplus. Not since 2010 when we came into office, because they would have you believe that the deficit only started under this administration. But I'm here to tell you that it started from the previous administration, including record levels of decline. 16%, unprecedented in Anguilla's history. And yes, they did preside over record levels of growth. That is true. Then they will tell you that. But I'm here to tell you the other side. I'm here to give you the whole truth and nothing but the truth. They had a good thing going and they messed it up. They messed it up, and they will talk about experience. They had this economy when the world economy was booming. Didn't hardly have to do anything. People just had money to burn. They were just coming and spending money left, right, and center. People paying over $4,000 a month for apartments. Poor Anguillans who were paying their regular $600 a month, $500 a month were kicked out. Because we have people here offering all kinds of money. Money was freely available everywhere. And these guys benefited, and we benefited. Yes, we benefited. But we didn't save, we didn't plan for that rainy day. We spent like the money would be continuously coming. You always hear about the 7 days of famine. We didn't prepare for that. We figured this would continue forever. And so we spent like there was no tomorrow. And do you know that in 2007, 2008, again, when everyone across the world knew that things were going downhill, the previous administration projected to spend $98 million in capital. $98 million in capital. And not because they had the reserves they planned to borrow. Just, could you imagine what had happened if they had borrowed close to $98 million? Could you imagine where we would have been today? You know, the country would have been saddled by debt for generations to come. Our children and grandchildren wouldn't be able to pay out that debt had that have gone through. But the Lord works in mysterious ways. He works in mysterious ways. And he said, we're going to bring a new government into office who understand the plight of the people. Now, just imagine, everybody would like to have a nice new fancy car, a nice home, a nice big home. And you may be sitting living in a two-bedroom house, and you want to build down a third room. So you say, boy, I need a third room. What you have to consider before you put on that third room is, can I afford to put on this third room? And if I go to the bank to borrow the money, can I afford to repay the bank? These are the common sense decisions that anybody in their personal lives will make. Before I put on that extra room, I buy that car, can I afford to pay for it? But it seems as if these experienced guys, it doesn't matter how we pay for it. Let's do it. Let's do it. So they boasted that they invested over $300 million in capital expenditure over their term. They spent money, but they had no regard for how they would repay. No regard whatsoever for how they would repay this money. You have to be responsible. Yes, we need to invest in capital, but we must do so. We must do so responsibly. We cannot afford to saddle our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren simply because we want to be seen to be doing something. We want to be seen to be doing something. So we go to plunge the country into debt. And then the new administration comes in, hands are tied. Can't do anything because the country is up to the neck in debt. And this is what happened under this administration when we came in. First thing we had to do was to borrow. Couldn't even pay our current expenses, so we had to borrow. That is true, we had to borrow. And the debt has remained relatively constant over that time. And it has gone down. Unlike in previous years, the trajectory had been up and up and up, almost 300% in some cases. But these are the guys, as I say again, that talk about experience. And that's what we're talking about here tonight, folks. We are talking about experience. So I just really wanted you to know that. We're talking about experience. You can make up your mind about, where that experience lies. And it certainly doesn't lie with the Anguilla United Front. We are going forward ever, folks. We're going forward ever. And backward never. Forward ever. Forward ever. And backward never. I can already hear the opposition party talking about we will remove the stabilization levy because it is a bad tax and we can't have that tax to continue further on than brilliant people. I can already hear them in my head saying it. We will remove stabilization levy. They will say, because they figure it is what the Anguillan people want to hear. But my fellow Anguillans, when they tell you that they will remove and they will repeal the levy, you must ask them, then what? You must ask them, then what? Let me tell you, the main contributors to revenue was import duty fuel, $42.7 million. Accommodation tax, $19.5 million. Customs surcharge, $14.3 million. Import duty, $14.1. Fuel and gas, $14.1 million. And the stabilization levy, $14 million. $14 million. So when they take out $14 million from the budget, how will they balance the budget? The only way they can balance the budget is by reducing expenditure by $14 million. And they can't do it. The only way they could do it, if they tried to do it, was by sending home civil servants. That's one of the things they can do. But they can't do it, and they won't do it. But what they will say to you, we won't have to cut any civil servants. What we will do is we will grow the economy. We'll grow the economy to make up for that shortfall, so you don't have to worry about any increased tax because we won't do it. But let me tell you, pure nonsense. That is pure nonsense. Because if they remove that stabilization levy, they have to replace it by something else. And I have this phrase that I was thinking about today. It says, a thorn by any other name will inflict the same pain. A thorn by any other name will inflict the same pain. So whether it's a stabilization levy, or whether it's an increase in customs surcharge, or whatever it is, or any fee, it still boils down to Anguillas having to pay more. So don't be fooled by this talk about we will grow revenue. The leading economies across the world are struggling to grow faster than 5%. Some of them be lucky to get 2% growth. So where are we going to get that kind of growth from to eliminate a $14 million deficit? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen for Anguillas because we're a small and open society and we depend heavily on what's happening in the outer world. Anguilla is inextricably linked to demand conditions in the global economy, in particular the US economy. This is why imbalances in the US are so often followed by decreases in Anguilla's tourism arrival. So don't be fooled. If it was as easy to raise $40 million, it would have been done a long time ago. It would have been done a long time ago. And they would not have overseen the largest deficits in Anguilla's history if it was so easy to raise revenue and to grow the economy. But we're talking about experience, my fellow people. We're talking about experience. My fellow Anguillans, I'm here tonight to support none other than the poodle. The Honorable Evan Gumbs, a humble man. A humble man. This is a man that cares for you, works hard for you every single day. Every single day. He's a caring man. And if that's really what you want in a leader, you want somebody who understands you, who cares for you, who cares about what happens to you. And this is the man you have in the Honorable Evan Gumbs, the hard worker. And he will continue to work hard for you when you re-elect the Honorable Evan Gumbs. So I'm saying to the people in this district, in this village, and everywhere I'm being heard this evening, re-elect the Honorable Evan Gumbs so he can continue his hard work. Mr. Gumbs has had his challenges, he has, but there's never daunted him. He continued to work hard at the struggle and to plug away because he's committed. He's committed to the cause and he's committed to ensuring that Anguillan people eventually can see lower utility bills, lower electricity bills, and lower water bills. This man is committed to doing that. Despite all the challenges and objections that he's had, he hasn't given up. He has continued. So I want you to keep on supporting this man because we need this man as a part of the next administration. We need Mr. Gumbs as a part of this administration. We need him there. We need his tenacity. We need his encouragement, we need his support. And together, this Anguilla United movement will take this country forward because we're moving forward ever. And we're not going back. Forward ever, I say. Backward never. We're on the move, Evan. We're on the move. And with the support of the people in District 4, we are definitely on the move. Forward ever. Backward never. I thank you very much.